In this video, we're going to go through 6 different things that I had no idea were related to my autism. Signs that were always there, clear as day, but were missed for so long that I just thought that I was weird or a bit quirky. Realizing that these things were actually related to autism has been life-changing during my self-realization process, to understanding that I was autistic. Understanding them allows me to make changes in my life, changes that I actually need in order to function better. And understanding them allows me to be kinder to myself too, which is equally as important. I'd like to share them with you in case you can recognize some of these signs in yourself if you're on a similar journey or just wanting to understand yourself better. Because if nobody had explained these things to me, I would still be going around thinking I was neurotypical. If you're new here, which, let's face it, you probably are, hello and welcome to my channel where I share my experiences as a queer, late-diagnosed AuDHD woman while I play some of my favourite cozy games. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, please stick around. I'm very glad to have you here. The game I'm playing is called Unpacking and has quickly become one of my favourite games to wind down to when everything just gets a bit much. And not understanding these signs that we're about to get into definitely made my life get a bit much. So let's get into it. Chewing on the insides of my cheeks. I've been doing this my whole life, ever since I had teeth basically. I can remember being as young as 5 and doing it, and I know I'd done it a while before that. So it must have been one of those things that I adopted as a self-regulating technique. I had no idea I was stimming. I'd bite until the insides would bleed, and I've actually had dentists comment on it as an adult that my teeth have been worn down in an odd way due to it. And I'd be like, oh, that's weird. I don't know what could have caused that. And then secretly I'd been thinking, oh, it's because I'm biting the insides of my cheeks so much. I'd force myself not to do it for short periods, and my cheeks would heal up, but then I'd catch myself doing it again out of nowhere, and I couldn't stop. I felt like it was a problem. So around 21, maybe, I started trying to pay attention to what I was doing and how my mental health was whenever I found myself chewing on the insides of my cheeks. And it was when my mind was going 100 miles an hour, overwhelming me, or I was around really loud noises. So clearly, it was a thing I did for self-soothing. And apparently, it's a common autistic stim. So I knew that having difficulty with eye contact was a typical autistic trait, but I thought it meant not being able to make eye contact at all. Turns out that no, it doesn't always show itself in that way. Apparently, a common thing is being able to make eye contact when a person is speaking, but as soon as it's your turn to speak, you look away. That's exactly my experience with eye contact, and I truly didn't think I had an issue with it until 2 out of 3 psychiatrists commented on it in my screening assessment. Yes, 3 separate screening processes. Yep, it's been a long journey. I'll still force myself to make eye contact when people are speaking. It's not something that's completely natural for me to do, but this is a leftover thing from before I knew I was autistic, and it's really hard to break free from it. I just do it automatically. I'd quite often find myself really uncomfortable making eye contact and then be so preoccupied with counting down the seconds until it would be acceptable to break eye contact that I wouldn't hear what the person was saying. But I still didn't think that I had an issue with eye contact. And making eye contact when I'm talking, nah, it's just not going to work. I wouldn't be able to concentrate on what I was saying. This is in the same category as biting the insides of your cheek, twirling your rings around on your fingers as a form of stimming. For years, I couldn't even wear rings because of the sensory issues it would give me, which at the time I didn't know were sensory issues. I just really felt the ring, if that makes sense. But then I forced myself to wear rings because of the aesthetic. And I must have realised quite quickly that they were great for keeping my hands busy because the rings stayed, and I've been wearing rings ever since. It's also a socially acceptable thing to do in public during work meetings and lunch breaks. Nobody thinks twice about anyone twirling their rings. So it became a great way for me to stim in public, and I had no idea that I was even stimming. I only learned about finger posturing semi-recently, and it blew my mind. So finger posturing or hand posturing is where you hold your fingers or hands in a certain way to stim. I'd always do this as a child, especially. I still do now to some extent, but I think I did it more as a child. I distinctly remember doing it in school during class. It's a type of stimming. Something about the pressure is calming to an autistic nervous system, if I understood correctly, and it's apparently very common in children. So I did a quick Google just to see if I could find a better description about why we finger posture, because I felt like I just couldn't articulate it properly. When a child experiences heightened sensory sensitivity, hand posturing behaviors can help them address potential sensory overload or intense emotions and reduce anxiety without triggering a meltdown. Well, that explains why I remember doing it so much in school then. This is going to sound really dumb because looking back, this is such a clear sign that I was autistic. But this was missed, just like all the other clear signs that I was autistic growing up. So I just thought that this was a me thing until very recently. Being overly sensitive to sunlight. I've had this issue since I was a tiny baby. My mum has told me that I'd be in the pushchair as an infant, like at the age of not being able to hold up my own head. So really, really young, months old at that point. And I would get so upset if the sun was in my eyes. And I still get really upset about it. I just force it down until I have a shutdown or, worst case scenario, a meltdown. When I think back on the decades that I went without any type of sun protection for my eyes, it's actually mind boggling. I mean, poor past me. It causes me enormous amounts of stress. So by this oversight alone, it's truly not a shock that I suffered a complete autistic burnout after 30 years of just grinning and bearing it every time I had to be outside. And there's so many other factors that cause the burnout too. It's mental. I worked for a glasses company for a while, and they would give you free glasses as a benefit. So I got myself a pair of free glasses since they're so expensive here in Sweden. And since they were completely free, I ordered a pair of photochromatic lenses just for the sake of it. It wasn't until I started wearing them regularly that I realized how sensitive I was to light. Photochromatic lenses are clear lenses that look like normal glasses until they interact with the sun's UV rays and they automatically turn dark. So they turn into sunglasses when outside, basically. I will never buy another pair of glasses without photochromatic lenses ever again. I also make sure to always wear a hat if it's sunny outside nowadays. And these accommodations have greatly helped. In fact, I've got a video about 30 accommodations that I make to make my day-to-day life easier. This next one is an example of taking things literally, which is a well-known autistic trait. I just didn't realize that I was taking things literally. The term masking doesn't mean that you actually put on a mask, and unmasking doesn't mean you're actively taking off a mask. Now, okay, let me explain this. Logically, I understand that you're not actually putting on a mask. We're not walking around like Jason with a hockey mask on our faces. Like, I know this, but I kind of pictured it in my mind as slipping on a new character that wore a different face. And by that, I mean using my own face muscles differently in a way that I wouldn't do naturally. Does that make sense? So when I was trying to unmask, I kind of thought it was about taking off this invisible anecdotal mask kind of thing, and that I'd be a completely different person underneath. But unmasking is about accommodating yourself. It's got nothing to do with actually taking off a mask. So, for example, using a fidget toy to stim is unmasking. Me making the switch to photochromatic lenses is unmasking. Just wearing a hat outside is unmasking, essentially. It sounds silly now when I say it out loud, but when learning about autism, you hear so much about masking, especially in women or AFAB folks, that I kind of built it up as this massive thing in my head, something that I was going to have to tear off of myself in order to heal my internalized ableism and actually start to treat myself well. But it's actually much more simpler than that. I'm planning a video that will be about how to unmask, where we can get deeper into this. But yeah, when somebody explained that to me, gosh, it blew my mind. And it also made me realize that I have actually done a lot to unmask in the past year. Okay, those were my 6 different signs that I didn't know were autism. I'm thinking about making this into a series because I've got so much more to say on this topic. I've got so many more signs that I can't believe actually are autism, and it just makes so much sense. It makes you realize that you're not so alone. All right, that was it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.